Welcome to Future Talk. On today's program, we're going to talk about how to raise your visual IQ. What I mean by that is how to make better use of visual images in your business or other type of organization so you can communicate more effectively, leverage information, and make sure everybody is operating according to the same game plan. I have two guests. David Sibbet is the founder of the Grove Consultants International, which teaches his visual methodology at companies such as Nike and PayPal and agencies such as the Federal Reserve. We're not talking about PowerPoint slides here, but something much more powerful and interactive. David has been doing this type of consulting for over 40 years, and he's written 3 books on the subject: Visual Meetings, Visual Teams, and Visual Leaders. Also with us is our own Mei Lin Feng, co-producer of Future Talk since its beginning. Mei Lin is chairman of the board of the Institute for Service Organization Excellence, where she uses David's methods to do leadership training for her own clients, which include the U.S. Defense Department, Microsoft, and Oklahoma State University. David, let me start with you. It seems sort of obvious that pictures are useful in communication. What's special about your methodology?
I think what's special is applying the methods that engineers and architects have used since the time of Leonardo or maybe even the pharaohs to actual business planning and to helping do organizational change. And it's a way of working that has grown out of Silicon Valley and the Western United States, where there's been so much invention and entrepreneurial activity. So quite a number of these designers and architects began jumping over and facilitating group processes. And I was part of that whole movement in the 70s to basically invent a new kind of facilitation.
So how does it basically work?
Well, I have a picture here. I probably should demonstrate how it works. And I've got a little tablet. This particular drawing is of a visual meeting. This is a very typical planning kind of meeting. And here you have a manager and a facilitator. And the facilitator is basically asking the group what it wants to do, and people talk. And then the facilitator imagines, and listens, and then draws on the chart something. And then people in the meeting actually look at what's in the chart, and you have this interaction that goes on between the picture and what people are saying.
So you're drawing on a big piece of paper in this meeting?
Generally, yeah. And there are a couple of things that happen right away. One is the level of engagement just goes up hugely, almost regardless of your drawing ability. Secondly, you can hold many more items in your mind, so it really is a key to big picture thinking. And some people would say systems thinking. And this third thing is that you can remember it, because if people see it going up there, they as a group are remembering it, and it then goes, into minutes that actually are pictures of what's happened. So these 3 powers have been so strong that it's fueled the development of entire field.
Now, after the picture is finished, does it remain in some kind of archive so people can always go back to it as a reminder of what they discussed?
Well, it happens many different ways. Sometimes it goes into an archive. Sometimes it's worked up into a more polished picture, and I can show some examples of that later. But primarily what it does, if I could move to another slide here, this is a picture of a decision room that has been set up to be visual, and it looks like a regular conference room. But you may notice that up here, and I'll shift to a white pen up here, are a poster that presents a model. You've got templates that are actually like big group worksheets. Plus you've got a PowerPoint here that's got the same pattern on it, and a more finished version over here. So in some ways what you're doing is you're creating what the Greeks actually used years ago, which is a memory theater. The room actually becomes a place that holds the concepts. And so you probably have noticed, if you've ever been in a meeting, that if somebody writes something on a flip chart in one place, and then somebody happens to move the flip chart, people will point to that empty space where the flip chart was. Because what people do is they build actually a very visual image in their minds of what happens.
Now, do you capture the images electronically, because presumably this will get stored away somewhere and you want people to be able to access it no matter where they are?
Well, one of the huge developments in my field of visual facilitation has been the digital camera. When it really began to get good, and now it's ubiquitous on every cell phone, anything that's done on a whiteboard or anything that's done on a large sheet of paper in a meeting room now can go right into email, go right into a slide deck, whatever. So I think that's part of what's also fueled its recent growth and popularity.
Now, can you give any examples of specific companies you've worked for and what results were accomplished?
Well, there's a wide range. I've been fascinated with how many different places you could use it. So one example would be, you know, the cookie company that makes the fresh-baked cookies, Otis Spunkmeyer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're an example of what I would call a mid-market company, which doesn't have a built-up set of staff from the corporate area doing a lot of the generic functions like running meetings and things like that. So they had me come in and start to work with them when they were about a $300,000 company. And over the course of visualizing their vision and then leading their functions through regular business planning in this method, and the rooms often looked exactly like this picture that I showed of the decision room. They are now at about $2.5 billion. They've merged with several other companies in the process, and it was a very effective way of kind of communicating their strategy out from the core group so that the whole system began to understand what they were doing.
Now, do people need special training to do this, or could they just figure it out themselves?
Well, you need to understand the power of visualization. One of the reasons I wrote the Visual Leader book was to help...
Maybe we can get a picture of your book.
Yes.
I think we have a slide of that.
Wiley and Sons got an idea that this actually was a pretty booming field and convinced me to write this series. And the Visual Leader one is for visual managers and leaders who want to use visual practitioners and facilitators and imagery, but aren't necessarily drawers. So an example would be at Nike, I was working with a treasurer of the company who wanted to show how 4 different functions that all fell under treasury actually integrated. So he says, I want to have a vision in 4 days with this group, and I want to involve 60 people. And so myself and another one of my visual practitioners came in, and we met with 60 people the first day. Then we met with a smaller leadership core the second and third day to kind of polish some of the ideas. Then we presented them back to the 60 on the last day in kind of a big theatrical thing. And they had a 4-foot by 24-foot visual depiction of their entire strategy that they'd all agreed on over the course of that time. Now, this is what many people would think of if they were in the design field as rapid prototyping, or where you're basically doing a quick concept of something, getting feedback, and then iterating. Some people call this agile planning, which is really what this kind of methodology supports.
Now, what do you do as a consultant? Are you the guy who comes to the meeting and you do the drawing while you're listening to the meeting, or do you train other people and then your job is done there?
I mostly am a person that goes in and actually does the consulting. And what we are oriented to doing is then working with internal staff so they learn how to do it. And so we have in several large systems like the Mars Corporation, Hewlett-Packard in the 90s, and now we're working at places like Nike. We actually, because they get so excited about this way of working, they say, can you come in and train our people? So then we'll come in and actually train them and then provide tools. But I think what's very interesting about this field is it's in the last 18 years, there's actually been a development of an international association of people who are full-time graphic facilitators.
One thing about doing it on paper is that it seems like it wouldn't be easy to make changes in it, to erase things, or what if the meeting is still going on and you've run out of space?
Well, these new inkjet plotters that will print 3 and 4 feet wide, Canon, HP, a lot of these people make it, you just carry enough paper. And then almost every conference room has flip charts. So If you run out of paper, you put up more paper.
So, Malin, you also apply David's work to your clients.
Yes.
How does that work out for you? What kind of organizations do you work with, and what kind of results do you get?